Okay, I'd like to call a meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Neil Harden. I'm chairing today's panel. With me in the room is Linda McFadden, and via Zoom is Kent Seelan. The assessor today is Clayton Diachin, and the administrative assistant is Jaswinder Kumar. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment rule in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made in this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The board is appointed annually by council and is independent of it in the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions the applicant may have, then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You'll receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live stream recorded and will be part of the public record. We'll be hearing items 1 to 9 on our docket today. Mr. Kumar, please affirm the assessor's and the applicant's testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Diachin, please state your full name.
Clayton Diachin.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Burukas, please state your full name.
Matthew Barokas.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld, please state your full name.
Rocky Neufeld.
Thank you. Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
All right. The first property on today's agenda is 88 Killarney. And before starting on this property, I'd like to say there's a few properties on today's agenda where the issue seems to be cap rate. So if we could concentrate on the issues that are in dispute and not on the issues that aren't in dispute, it would speed the hearing. So Mr. Diachin on 88 Killarney, please.
File number 222733, roll number 030424260000. Address is 88 Killarney Avenue. Assessed value is $2,596,000. Class code 20, liability taxable. Is one building, 3 stories high, built in 1971 with a small effective age applied to it. It has 23 suites, 23 outdoor parking stalls. And looking for this one is a cap rate issue from the looks of it. Our NOI was accepted, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this. But it has 23 one bedrooms with an average monthly rent of $893.45. NOI is $121,922. A cap rate of 4.7% gives us the value of $2,596,000. Page 4 is our rent comparables. I tried to find some with similar mixes built in around the same year. That falls at the bottom of the range of average monthly rent per unit. Moving on to page 5 is our cap rate table that shows the 20th percentile to the 8th percentile for our model. Page 6 is our cap rate evidence. It shows actual sales that took place during the reference period. And the purpose is to show these individual cap rates to illustrate the accuracy of the model and substantiate the model derived cap rates. And as you can see, there's a range essentially from 3.6% to 5.74%. Continuing on, on page 8, we have the income and expense mailers all the way to page 10. Page 11 are some permits for interior and exterior alterations. Looks like replacing windows, electrical, plumbing for about $300,000 in value. Page 12 and forward are just some pictures of the property. You can see some interior pictures. It looks like there was some work done to the bathroom and the kitchen. And that is my evidence.
All right, questions, Mr. Neufeld?
Yes, this is located across the street from Fort Richmond Collegiate, isn't it?
Yep.
Okay. The work up on page, yeah, we're just going to talk about the cap, but page 3 this is all in the model then?
Correct.
And on page 5, you included a number of industry reports on cap rates. Why are they here?
Sorry, say that again.
Well, you've included cap rates from Colliers, CBRE, and Cushman and Wakefield. Why are they here?
So they're here just to compare their low and high to our 20th and 80th percentile, as just to serve as an example of what other outlets are putting out.
So we have 3 realtors who sell properties, and they do not support your model. Why wouldn't you not investigate further at your model's errors?
Well, we get all the income and expense information from the apartments in the city of Winnipeg. I'd say we have more data in regards to that aspect than the competitors do, and we develop our own cap rates. So if you look at the 20th to 80th percentile at 4.8 to 5.6, you see it ranges from 4.75 to 6 from the Collier, CBRE, Cushman, Wakefield. And our sales that we found, the majority of them range from 4.7 to 5.7. So it looks like we are actually in parallel with them.
Do any of your income and expense statements, were any of them generated on the date of sale?
The date of sale?
Yeah, if you have a cap rate comparable, were any of them generated on the date of sale?
No, it would be taken from the end of the last full year prior to the year of sale. So if it's sold, say, middle of March 2020, it would be the 19, 18, 17 going backwards and looking at those mailers to come up with a stabilized net operating income.
And other than the review of the mailers, was any other investigation undertaken into any of these cap rates that went into the model?
In terms of going into the model, I didn't do the modeling part. I can speak to the table of examples in the industry, but I'm not a modeler, so I can't comment on that.
Okay, well then let's move on to that. I understand that page 6 was your workup, Mr. Brackus?
Yes,
Okay, everybody's giving you credit or blame for it, so.
I know. That's how it goes.
When now I understand a little bit about the process is that you went through generally what you went through about 3 years of income and expense
Yeah.
analysis that was submitted to the city. Any other investigation done?
Yeah, so I was trying to see if there were, first of all, this isn't like the original list I have. I know you brought up an issue of the property showing that it was associated, and I wasn't able to find that initially when I was doing my review, and it doesn't appear in the table anymore. So we don't want associated sales. We don't want package sales involving multiple parcels. We don't want sales that where the net operating income isn't what they took into consideration by virtue of them doing a heavy renovation soon after, or them by declaring in their sales mailer that the purchase price that they agreed upon was not based on their net operating income. So sales like that, I didn't include for analysis. And then I also wanted to ensure that the 3 years of data was complete. It looked normal. So I went through like quite a lot. Like, I don't know how many I went through, but it was.
But I was asking anything more than just looking at the income and expense forms. For example, on this one that was submitted for the subject, page 8, we have a signature and a phone number and an email address. I'm going to assume it's there in case you had to ask any more information. Was that done? Any verification done on these?
No, I didn't follow up and call them. No, I did not personally.
Okay, so strictly from the sole source of information would have been then the income and expense forms and perhaps titles if they were searched. Is that fair to say?
Exactly. It would have done like a land titles
Okay.
business search.
Those are my questions, and I think everyone's seen this all before, but I'm going to submit the same old rebuttal information. I think we've laid the groundwork, and Mr. Chairman, we're just going to do this once, not 100 times or 8 times.
Okay, so your rebuttal will be after your evidence in chief.
Right.
Okay. So Linda, do you have any questions for the assessor?
So we have this is a 50-year-old building. It has a cap rate of 4.7 according to your model, which suggests that this is in the 20% of the best buildings in the entire city. Is that correct assumption?
Yeah, like there was renovations done to the building. And that's why we have effective year built on it as well. So that takes into account.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Kent, any questions?
Yes, when have you inspected this property?
Sorry?
When have you inspected or last inspected the property?
I didn't inspect anything on the docket today.
Nothing?
No.
Do we know when it was last inspected?
I don't know. I can't access my model notes because we're on a different computer right now. I do know that there was renovations done in 2016 that was looked into. I'm not 100% sure if it was inspected at that time though.
Okay, thanks very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Again, questions on the cap rate. It seems that size is, well, to use a multivariate linear regression terminology, that size is the primary variable for the cap rate and not, say, age or location or anything like that. Would that be correct to say?
No, I mean, it takes everything into consideration. Size is something that does matter as well. I mean, it is near the University of Manitoba. So that would be, in my mind, considered an attractive area to own an investment property, given there would be a demand for student housing. But at this size, I mean, if it was around $1 million and under, then I would say maybe that would be something that played more into an effect. This is already almost 2.6 million. So maybe some of those smaller investors might not be able to pull the capital together to compete on a purchase. So I would say this one might be a little bit too big for the size thing to come into play. But I mean, that's subjective and based on an opinion.
Okay, thank you for that response. All right, Mr. Neufeld, you can proceed with your presentation.
Thank you. I asked the question about Fort Richmond because I just wanted to, in case I get asked another question about the last time I inspected it, so I could remember. So it was about 44 years ago. There's a lot of good parties in there.
Do you remember your inspection?
I with complete detail, down to the walls and the carpets and the lava lamps. The site is I think the assessor was correct on the point of it's like a student housing more than an apartment because it's a 1-bedrooms, and as a result, you know, you're dealing with that sort of population who generally they'll sign a 1-year lease and be empty for 9 months. But then the turnover is significant because it tends to go with the length of time you're at the U of M. So that's my familiarity with it is maybe it goes back a long way, but nothing has changed. The U of M is still the predominant factor in this submarket, and it is still student housing, predominantly student housing with the 1-bedrooms. Now we have not done an income on it because the assessor is correct. There's been some recent work and the income is not stabilized. So their income appear appropriate. The cap rate, we look at the market. Now the Colliers cap rate is indicated on page 22. And it is the result of two methods. One are actual sales, and the other are the money market trends. We do have sales, and I don't think the cap rates were included. I have sent them on to the assessor at some point, but I never got them into the evidence because we got them rather late in the year, and perhaps we'll see them in another month. When most of the debate is over, but they do support the numbers. The range of the Colliers caps is 5 to 6%, which is the same range as the other market participants, CBRE and Cushman. Cushman slipped have another variable for high rise. This isn't a high rise. Of course, there are definitions for the multifamily are listed on page 16 and as well as page 23. This doesn't fit the definition. The low rise definition is rather vague on page 23, but having participated in the creation of this study, I can tell you that this property is not in the Colliers study. It is inferior. So if the Colliers, we were looking at the multifamily, the low and the high would represent class A and class B. So to give you an idea of a class A would be the apartments that are now around IKEA that have popped up. A class B would be at something, a property that's 20 years old at most and metal coat at the time, and might and would be in Winnipeg, it would be concrete construction. It would not be wood frame, because that's the other distinction Winnipeg does in our cap rate study. I've never brought this up before, but it's kind of an interesting thing, is that we actually rate wood versus concrete. And wood gets a lower rating. This building is is masonry. Although I know it doesn't fit in our model, it would be a class C, a good class C, and that's why we've applied 6%. The issues on it are, of course, the 1 bedrooms, a major issue. It's focused on a particular type of tenant. The way again, we're going back years, the way people used to appraise apartments, they'd say, well, you need a good mix of 1s and 2s, because as people grow, they form relationships, and they need more space, and it's good to keep them in the same building. That is the line of thinking. It's a bit anecdotal, but it speaks to the flexibility of a building to be able to handle, and the 1 bedrooms leaves you with 1 socioeconomic class. Even though this had some renovations, they're not prime candidates for renovation, because you're still limited on the rent you can charge, because it's still a 1 bedroom, regardless of what and I'm sorry, I was just wanted to look at something here. I see that the assessors determined 1971 should be changed to 1985. They've shown no real evidence as to how this happens. I can say to you that the foundation was not changed, the framing was not changed, the envelope had just the window changes, but there was no reason to say it's going to live longer because it's got new windows. It's simply keeping up with deferred maintenance and keeping it in reasonable shape. Condition issues, they use assessor uses an effective year built. We have 3 factors: building size, year built, quality, and condition. And these aren't just condition, quality and condition aren't just of the actual original material. It's on the ability to replace and repair and fix the original material as changes occur. So if you have 50-year-old masonry block, you don't replace it, but you do have repointing to do on an ongoing basis. So that's why we drop quality and condition for things like that. And we have 3 factors. Like I said, you can't change the age of it. It is 1971. The last point being the size of it, 23 units, I'm sorry, is below an optimal amount. I think we usually use 30 units as being or more as being optimal. And a very interesting a very interesting piece of evidence came up on a hearing last week. And I'm not going to tell you we're not going to get into the details, but essentially there was a permit taken out for some back stairs for $9,000, and it was a 4-plex. So the point is, in that particular case, $9,200 divided by 4 is $2,300 per unit in cost. If you divided that by 30 units, it's 300, and that's why we're critical of smaller units on investment, because the fixed costs indicate higher risk on expenses. So we are still looking at as a class B at 6%, and that's my presentation.
Okay, questions, Mr. Darchin?
Yeah. Did the interior renos affect your decision on condition and quality adjustments?
Not at all. Interior renovations are part of a short-lived item, which go through a typical 10-year cycle. Some last longer than that, but it's usually a 10-year cycle. So it's just an ongoing expense.
Okay. Looking at the location adjustment, do you agree that it's in an attractive area for investment?
No, I think the top area in Winnipeg is always been St. Boniface, and the second area is because the users are strong and demand is strong. In Winnipeg, the secondary areas tend to be, believe it or not, around the Elmwood area, and to a degree the Crescentwood area. When we start getting further out to the suburbs, and this is almost at the perimeter highway, it gets into tertiary investment area for multifamily. And the other problem with this particular part of the city is that it was mostly built in the 60s. I was living in St. Norbert when everything popped up, and it hasn't changed because it's a thin sliver of land that was bordered on one side by the river and the other side by agricultural land. And it wasn't until Waverly West came in around 2008 that we really saw anything happen. And still, and it has such a small hinterland of support. So it's like a Charleswood area, like a West St. James area, is geographical limitations. St. Vital, for example, can expand outwards, and the existing arteries, the streets, St. Anne, St. Mary's, can carry the traffic. We're in this case, I don't see it that way.
But you agree having a building close to the university is desirable, correct?
For student housing, not for normal market. And everybody knows U of M's putting up 10,000 units in the next few years, and they knew it in April 1st, 2021. Investors aren't jumping on the bandwagon today to be knocked out of the market by the U of M's new sites.
Would you agree that the vacancy is quite low at 1.5%?
Which vacancy are you speaking to?
The vacancy for the building.
The actual vacancy?
Mm-hmm.
Where is this located?
If it's not in your brief, it's in ours.
Okay, well, I did not submit it because we knew it wasn't stable. So it is your evidence, and I haven't had a chance to examine it. I would need a few minutes to read where you got this from, but I'm looking at I'm seeing about 3% on this statement here. Oh, that was budget. Yeah, well, about one and a quarter was what they ended up actually at this point in time. I think that's a good vacancy. Yes.
Yeah. No other questions.
Okay, Kent, any questions?
No, my questions have been answered, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Linda, any questions?
Mr. Neufeld, your Collier's table here or the table that the city provided that shows the Collier's rate between 5 and 6, is that the entire range, or is it similar to the way the city does it, where that's the 20 to 80% range?
No, that corresponds to our page 22, which is broken down. The high rise and the low rise are the same, and the low and the high represent the low would be class A, and high would be high would be class B. And the examples I gave you of the IKEA one, and there's actually another class A in my report on page 3. That's a class A walk-up came in at 5.5%. The subject would be, as I think, a C, so we would be outside of our range, but closely outside.
Okay, just interesting. the city has this place in amongst buildings with the lowest risk, and you have it placed amongst buildings with the highest level of risk. Would that be accurate?
No, because the city's percentile thing is all encompassing. We just don't class buildings like this. They're miscellaneous. Most brokerage companies are focused on premium product, and of course we all sell the other product, but this is not meant for the subject property. Our cap rate is a better style of product, and you remember that it's primarily an advertising tool. I don't know how to say this and introduce into evidence. Generally, when we show people these cap rates and brokers, and then we show them the rates that we've looked at, they find it very amusing that anyone would even say that these older buildings should get a 4% rate. They're generally going to be transacted in the 6 to 7% range, based on how they're stabilized and their individual assets. And 6 is probably the low end of the poor quality range, which is what this is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Kent, any questions?
No, Mr. Chair, thanks.
Okay, and I have no questions. So on your rebuttal, Mr. Neufeld.
Yes, thank you. And I'll be very brief, hopefully. The one mark cap rebuttal 5 skipped down to it contains a lot of topics in here, so I'm just dealing with the ones we talked about.
Is that the one? Is that the one starting with BDC?
That's correct.
Okay. So
First, going down to page 20. So these have to do with the examples that were brought forward. 2390 McPhillips. The sale was listed as being at 19,400,000. The assessment is 17,288,000. I'm not comparing assessments. What I'm seeing here is an error in the model, because if this cap rate was adequate to use to support the model, the value driven by the model should come out to a very similar amount. There is an error in the model. That's what I'm trying to say here. The second point on this particular sale, it was a REIT purchase, and their internal declared yield is 4.15%. That's on the same page. That's called creative financing. It's an investment value, which means that they have a different pool of money available for their purchases, which is at a lower rate than the market rate. As a result, they can go for lower yields. That's as simple as that. And the standard, I think I put this IAAO standard in here, don't use REIT purchases, because they're investment values, not markets. The next one on page 22 is the same issue. If the model works, then the assessment should be at the sale price of $1,035,000, but it's not. It's at $860,000. The model doesn't work if the sales that they're bringing forward don't end up being supported. Next one, which is 203 Bertrand, on page 23, it indicates that it was renovated, and the renovation date was I believe it's post reference. I can't read this small print here. But the point is that it was purchased as a project building. This is not a cap rate sale. Now, Colliers did the appraisal on it when it sold. We actually have a number of 5.37% on the cap. The listing agent, which is on page 24, his cap is 7.44%. So the market indicates difference, and the reason would be that these rates were calculated at time of sale, not from an old expense form. Those were and the last one I was looking at was 677 Maryland, which has sold 3 times, as you can see. That's on page 26. The last sale at 2.4 million was actually below the previous sale from 6 years prior at 2.6 million. And this property has had an interesting history. I think at one point I have appraised it going back maybe to the 2010 sale. It was a project building. The agents who have listed it have put on several different rates of that were on there, but essentially I'm just looking for the summary on these rates. Yeah, I have the summaries looked on page 19. The 2020 listing has an NOI of 7.29%. The 2014 listing has a NOI a cap rate of 7.9%. The other issue with this building is that on the listing on page 29, it had at time of sale preferential financing. The 30 years remaining on this rare CMHC mortgage rate and the low interest environment. So it had a CMHC rate, so you're actually buying the mortgage as well, which means that you could pay more money for it, because again, the concept of earnings, even though we don't look at interest rates in our cap rate analysis, would indicate that you're going to get a greater return with a lower mortgage. Now, what should have been done on this for adjustment is there's a formula, and I put it on the pages 39 to 41, and it is how you can adjust for preferable financing. I did not adjust this for preferable financing, but the point is it should either been excluded or adjusted for the preferential financing. The last one I was looking at is 32 Arden, and I only discovered last week that Ash also owned the next door property. So in this case, the requirement is to review the impact of assemblage, and that should be done on this sale. That a normal investigation would have done that, and until that investigation has been done, which includes verification with the participants in the sale, you can't use it. That was my first part of rebuttal. The second part is called city cap rates. Now, this was provided to me by Mr. Baracus, and I'm not going to do anything here that would, I hope this isn't improper, but we were discussing these.
Was this not was this not a without prejudice conversation we were having at the municipal board when we were exchanging evidence in negotiation?
No, see, I wasn't part of that process. You sent them to me individually. So,
well, this was coming
then,
through, actually, I think a property we're talking about last week, but for an earlier year, I was talking to Ayrton, and we're conversating, and then we were talking about cap rate, because that was the issue, and we're having a without prejudice discussion. So I would like,
but we're not, these have nothing. I don't even want to look at the cap rates on these. This is a question of the process, and we can either question you on the process, which actually I did, and I think it opened the door for this. And I wanted to just show what I see on some of the stabilizations, and I have shared this information with you outside of that process. It's merely meant to illustrate different styles of stabilization, and where I see that the city stabilization. I think this even speaks more to the model than it does to.
Okay. What I'm interested in is whether this was a without prejudice conversation. So can we focus on that?
I did not receive it on that basis. It was received.
Was it received by your company on that basis?
I am an accredited appraiser. I'm an independent contractor. I don't. It's not a company issue. I'm not like a city employee. I did not receive it on a without prejudice basis.
well, it was Colliers was appealing the properties. I was dealing with your son, who works in the same company as you, him initially, and then on the same issue we were discussing, you entered the conversation. I sent this to him to try and substantiate my proposed negotiation for a cap rate without prejudice for another reference date for another property altogether. So I just feel that, like, if are we going to start throwing in emails and everything?
No. As a matter of fact, this isn't the point at all. And some of the information that's in here has been through the board at different stages and entered as evidence. For example, the 333 ward workup, which was actually lifted from evidence for an Altus appeal.
And that's fine. That one came from the Altus appeal, and I don't really have a leg to stand on saying no to that. But these other ones, you can see the colored workups. These are mine. I haven't submitted at the Board of Revision previously, and I know, like, you questioned me on my methodology, but I mean, these other ones, they were part of a without prejudice conversation. I've had this also with other agents before where they've.
Okay, you know what? If you're reluctant, I'm fine with that. You know, I don't want to get this into a situation where the board has to be concerned about it. I'm going to talk about the Altus one, and then I'm going to reserve the right to speak in a general terms on methods of stabilization afterwards. So I'm just going to speak to what I see in errors happening, and this is the second page of this particular report. It's a shaded page. This was evidence provided by Altus and has been thrown about. It's the same property that we actually showed on our page 3, and you'll notice that on my page 3, Colliers did the sale. Brian Talio, who often walks by my door, and I've dragged him in to introduce him a couple of times, provided this information. NOI, 989,000. That's how it was sold. Now, what's been thrown about here, sourced, I believe, originally from Altus. I don't know. I don't care. You can see that the errors that people make, and that is the line on the management fee. They on line, the first marked line, they have a management fee listed of 50,000, which was then adjusted to 81,000. Make it 5%. Why? There's no justification for it. Now, if you follow down to wage 28, wages and benefits for caretaking, there's another $46,000 in costs. Now, if you were going to stabilize the management fee, you would then also look at the wages and benefits for the caretaking. That is part of the package, and it well exceeds 5%. There was no reason in the world for anyone to stabilize it at that. And the other consideration is this: every building's got a different cost of management. The purchaser did not do this. The vendor did not do this. This was an independent parties who had no involvement in the sale whatsoever, sitting down with some paper and imagining things. Does not replicate the market. And this is one of the errors. In this case, it's a 0.5% difference in what actually transpired at the sale between what people who knew nothing about the sale put down on paper. So I'll leave it at that then.
Okay. Mr. Diachin or Mr. Barakis, any questions on the rebuttal then?
Yeah, just a couple. So just on that, we'll start where we ended for 333 ward. So 5% management is, would you agree the statement that's the industry standard, more or less, for what management fees usually are for an apartment?
There's no such thing as an industry standard. It's often applied, and if it's often applied, you would do it if there's a lack of information or something in the statement that wasn't supportable. Now, this is a very professionally managed operation. There's nothing skimpy in those statements. If somebody gave it to you on a family-owned property that they've looked after for 100 years and never had a professional manager, I'd probably put a management fee and add it on because one should be there, not where we actually have costs. They surpass, and this is not a little operation. This is owned by a large investment entity who sold it to another one.
Okay.
No need to mess with their numbers.
Was it sold to a REIT or did the sale involve a REIT?
No, it was on it was set up as a new titled property, and the purchaser bought the shares in the company, and but because it was sold through a professional brokerage firm, we accepted it, we reviewed it and accepted, and there were no issues relating to retained earnings or deferred tax benefits or any of the sort. The sale was clean.
Okay. And then just in regards to the caretaking, I know you've mentioned that in your discussion. You said you took issue with the caretaking. Somehow could you maybe, I missed what you're getting
No,
at.
I wasn't taking issue with it. I simply said that there are two entries for expenses related to labor looking after the site. So you have to look at both of them together. Now, you'll note that $40,000 for caretaking is rather on the high side. Typically, we're used to seeing numbers that are much lower than that. It's usually a rental discount. So what this means is that part of the management was then offset to the on-site caretaker, and therefore the lower number in the management reflects the division of labor, which is exactly what the case was after I reviewed with the broker. Okay.
So in this instance, would you have made an adjustment to the caretaking if you were tasked with trying to come up with a cap?
No. I mean, the only there's a potential for looking at a different situation if you had a different style where, say, the new owner wanted to do, which I happen to know who we all know who the new owner is. They would have a centralized administration and repair and maintenance facility. So they would have offset those caretaking fees, cut them in half for just having someone there who locks the doors at 10 o'clock every night and calls them if there's a problem. And then that number would be lower, and then it would have got higher in the management side. It would be reallocation, not changing the total numbers.
Okay, just can you go to the other real quick? And then I know that the panel's heard this already much. I'm not gonna go on for too long. I'm just the one on Maryland. It says on your page 27 on the 2014 sale, the MLS listing. It says it looks like it was renovated at that time. Is that correct? In the description, in terms of rent control exemption in bold 5 years, roof, windows, electrical, etc.
Yeah, that was what the listing said. I know this has had a interesting history. I'm just presenting what was published.
Okay, and then just in regards to the cap rates that realtors include in their sales listings, in your experience, can they be accurately relied upon when it comes down to what the cap rate ought to be in your experience compared to what your organization and others are coming up with?
It depends on who's doing it. There's people who are very good at this, and there's people who dabble in it. Colliers are very good at it. I don't know this particular listing agent, never dealt with him. I can't comment on it. It's just brought up to show what the market was told. Remember, this is, even if it's not accurate, the market is looking at this. The market was told you are going to make $175,000. So that's one of the imperfections of the market. So whoever's going to use this rate has to stabilize it, not just the number, but they got to talk to the vendor and the purchaser and ask the purchaser, what did you rely on when you purchased this? That must be asked, because this isn't a paper transaction and you have to know what was in people's minds. And I think that's what I was getting at. Unless you ask them or you investigate, you're not going to get a good number.
Okay, and there's one last question just on page 24. This this MLS listing, this would be in the context of the 2023 reference date considered post-reference information.
It is wait a second.
Just on the list, Dave.
Yeah. No, Mr. Harden helped me out with this one before. Yes, okay. The listing was in May of 27. No, it is not, has nothing to do with the income. What it has to do with is the fact that it's stating that work was done on it. So
Okay.
we knew, yeah.
Okay, fair enough. That's our questions. Thank you very much.
Okay, Kent, any questions on the rebuttal?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Linda, any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
All right, I have no questions on this, so that summation for either party?
No, thank you.
Just briefly, again, I don't want to step on over any boundaries, but I think the assessor pointed out in his testimony that the city utilizes statements that occurred before the sale date, so that impacts their reliability, and I think that there's definite proof of that. And one of the major times that this occurs is when there's a sale that involved a renovation and an above guideline increase, because if you use past history and even income from a year prior, you do not reflect the changes that have occurred up to including the time of sale, and that is one of the issues of inaccuracy. Thank you.
All right, so thank you very much. Let's take a 5-minute break here and we'll come back at 10 o'clock. All right, we'll come back into session. The next property on the agenda is 1230 Pembina Highway. And I'll remind the parties that the evidence on the cap rate from last property will be carried forward to subsequent ones. So, Mr. Dyerson, you can begin on 1230 Pembina.
File number 222629, roll number 0309000000. I think I got the zeros right. Address 1230 Pembina Highway. Assessed value $1,311,000. Class code 20. Taxable liability. It's one building, 3 stories high, built in 1953 with 14 suites and 10 outdoor parking stalls. Onto the income value summary. We have 8 one-bedrooms, 6 two-bedrooms, giving us 14 units at an average monthly rent of $855.17. NOI is at $67,496, cap rate at 5.15%. Gives us a value of $1,311,000. Page 4 is the rent comparables again. Tried to find similar suite mixes around the same similar year built. You can see it falls well below the range of average monthly rent per unit. On to page 5 is the same cap rate table for the model from the 20th percentile to the 80th percentile. Page 6 is the cap rate evidence supporting our model cap rates. Page 8 is the income and expense mailer. You can see that the expense ratio is almost 100%, so something is going on there. That's why we went with the model values. Page 10 is the income expense mailer as well. And page 11 are the pictures of the building. Unfortunately, there's no interior pictures of the building. That's it. And that is my evidence.
All right. Questions, Mr. Neufeld?
Yes. Sorry about that. I had to multitask here. The assessors everywhere. Page, I guess it's for 3. This is all done by the model. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep.
And you list the sale, and the sale seems to have the same date as I think 2 other properties on today's docket. Did you look into it?
No, I did not.
Is it? Are you relying on it in any way whatsoever?
No.
Okay. And did you have an opportunity to review the actual statements? I'm looking page 8 of your presentation.
Yes.
It's a fair difference from what you have indicated. Essentially looks to me to be about 27,000 in NOI. Did that not get any weight?
You can see that the repair and maintenance is very high for this building at $50,000. And like I said, the expense ratio is nearing 100%. So there's obviously some incorrect figures on here.
Well, obviously, but did you do any investigation? I noticed that on the bottom of this form, we have a person's name and phone number. Did you contact them and ask them anything?
No, I did not.
Okay. Did you review past years of statements to see if it was an anomaly or an ongoing issue?
No, I did not.
Okay, and in regard to the cap rate, so this is 1953 construction.
Yep.
At the model put 5.15%. Does the age not have anything to do with this cap rate, or do you know what the factors are that the model applies?
The model takes into a lot of factors, and age would be one of them.
I'm sorry, I'm just looking over a review at all of the ones being presented today, and they all seem to be in a range, a tight range between 4.7 and 5.2%. And in the case of this one, it's 60 years old, 70 years old. And wouldn't that any reasonably indicate a higher capitalization rate?
Yeah, in isolation, definitely. I can see where your question's coming from. I know this one on, this one is estimated around 1.3 via our model. So it would start to fall into that smaller investment category where more groups of smaller investors could get in on the bidding for this property. So the higher potential group of potential purchasers, that would cause more demand, and thus the cap rate would be reflected as being lower. But I know your comments in regards to its overall age. I think those are valid concerns.
Okay, and your commentary on the size of the investor, is this anecdotal, or do you have any empirical proof?
I would say it's anecdotal, but when I do my reviews of smaller buildings, typically they're coming in on a 3-year stabilized at the lower end of the caps that I end up coming up with. And we also have sales mailers that purchasers submit after they buy the property, and often they're coming in under 5%. So, I mean, area, age, size, there's other factors that go into the model, but in my experience, I think, 5.25 in that range does make sense.
In regard to those mailers that come in, is there ever a follow-up question to ask to determine, or a follow-up review to see if it was purchased for as a renovation project?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like on the sales mailer in line 32, it actually asked, was the purchase price based on the property's net operating income in place? And then they say yes or no, and then they'll indicate a cap rate if it is based on their net operating income, and assumed cap rate. There's also another line on the previous page where they ask, do you intend to do any sort of renovations to this property? And then we review that. Now, we don't always get the sales mailer, unfortunately, but when we do, we take their what they put down into consideration.
On that basis, aren't you straying from the Municipal Assessment Act in terms of trying to look at different motivations of people rather than just the real estate alone?
No, we're just trying to, when we're reviewing the properties, because we like you said, in terms of calling and following up and finding out, what was, maybe they bought it and they plan on putting an equivalent amount of renovations as they paid for it, in which case the historical mailers wouldn't reflect a cap rate in which they purchased the property based upon. So like we try and get as much information as we can and do the best we can with it. We don't always have the time or the ability to call every single person, but we do take those things into consideration.
Okay, and you mentioned the smaller size. Now, I had asked the question if you're aware that this is a portfolio sale back in 2011. Now, does that mean it's no longer a small size transaction building? It's actually part of a larger economic group?
Yeah, I wouldn't use a portfolio sale.
I'm not talking about using the sale. I'm saying about when you're using a size, you're saying a small size generates a lower cap. In this case, it was actually a large size sold as 3. Would that kind of fly in the face of that theory?
We're just assessing it as one property, irrespective of the other two, or whatever it would have transacted in 2011. We're not putting any weight on that. We're not interested. It was a dollar sale ultimately.
Oh, okay, but thank you. Those are my questions.
Okay, Linda, any questions?
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Okay, Kent, any questions?
Just to reconfirm, you haven't inspected any of the properties, including this property.
I have not, no.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I noticed the effective year is the same as the actual year, so there's been no renovations on this property.
Not to our knowledge, no.
All right. Okay, I have no more questions, so you can begin, Mr. Neufeld.
Okay, so I just want to get my facts straight here. Yes, so the subject property at 1230 Pembina, firstly, it was sold as a portfolio with 2 other properties you're going to hear today. One Finch and 1520 Pembina. You'll note that the sales dates coincide, and it was listed as a dollar sale because it was a joint partnership between the current owner and another party. And this was a buyout of a 50% interest, which is why they didn't list it as a sale. So what happens is that they call it a dollar, and then they declare the value of the entire operation, which was $817,000, and the purchase price was $408,500 for getting the 50% share. Just as a background, and as this relates to today, with most properties that are owned by groups, there's an incredible stinginess, and in certain of the partners. So they did inherit a very large deferred maintenance problem. However, if you look at the statements over the years, what we have done is try to stabilize them to 1,800 per unit. You'll note that on our page 1, the incomes are fairly consistent. There's a dip in 19 and a recovery in 20, which is a bit of a concern. The common thinking has always been, well, these things are always going up every year, so we'll use the last income. The point is, this one does not demonstrate that. It does have some variances that it does not operate in the typical fashion. So it's treated as it is, not some hypothetical idea that it's always going to go up. That's why we stabilized that the average income, and we do have over 10 years of statements on this property, so very comfortable with these numbers. The expenses we ended up stabilizing, and on the bottom of page 1, you can see we've listed the actual repair and maintenance from 18, 19, and 20, and it is higher than normal, and this is associated with continuing deferred maintenance. What this entails is built in 1953, so until 2011, there was very, very little work done on the suites. So beginning in 2011, they went down to do complete cleanups on every suite as it became vacant, and a bit more thorough than normally. So in addition to flooring and wall coverings, there would be cabinets and all the fixtures and all the appliances. These are expenses. The only thing that differs in this case is instead of amortizing them on a longer lifespan, it's a little more compressed because there was a deferred maintenance issue, which is why we adjusted the R&M downwards. And you can see that in the last year, it was about 3,600 a unit. We're using 1,800 a unit. That's the compression of the deferred maintenance issues on the property. So we did take this into account, and the resulting stabilized expenses are nice and tight at between 82 and 87,000. That is the proof that shows that our calculations were good. And our calculations are not just paper calculations. We work with the ownership, we get the reports, we find the information, and I have inspected this. I brought an assessor around at one time. I can't remember the exact year, but it's on site as well. As a result, we have a stabilized NOI of 50,000. Now that I can understand that the argument may be made, you should use the final year of income rather than the average, and that would indicate an NOI that was $5,000 higher. I don't believe so. Not in this case. There's nothing to support that. It's I think sometimes the assessors on this, and a lot of people, I should say, are in the mindset that property goes up every year. It doesn't. The impact of the major projects on multifamily happened mostly in the south end of Winnipeg. And when you consider all the new units that went up, that all being mostly all in the south end, and I'm talking not just about the IKEA area, but in Waverly West and along Pembina Highway, there is displacement. So it is expected that the market will answer, even though this property doesn't compete head on with the new properties. What happens is the trickle down. So someone who is renting in a grade B building moves up to an A, and someone who is renting in this, which is a C/D building, moves up to a B. So that, and all things considered the same. So the market has seen changes like this, and I think we're reflecting it. As far as the cap rate goes, again, it's the same as the last time. Same issues, same part of town, same vintage, same problems. Specific issues relate to, in this case, a pretty severe lack of parking and a little bit older building, but those were the minor factors we considered, and I think our numbers is pretty good at 843. I do have, like I said, 10 years of research on this. That's my presentation.
Questions, Mr. Darton?
Do you have any details on what kind of work they're doing in the building?
Yeah, I just said during my presentation, it's as a suite is vacated, a more extensive turnover is done. Like most times, if you rent a new apartment, they may put in a new carpet if there's stains on it, some painting. Occasionally, they'll change appliances. In this case, so the program was when vacated, do a thorough workover on it, so you would see a complete from painting and decorating to fixtures, toilets, sinks, cabinets. And it's just suite by suite.
Okay. Are these type of renovations continuing on past 2020?
Yeah, but what as I was saying, is what was it was more of a compression of a schedule. So some of these items fit into the short range, 7 to 10 years. Some fit into medium range, 15 to 20 years. So a lot of them are compressed into the 10-year time frame, and they couldn't get all of them, and they can't get all of them started until they have a turnover. So they will continue onwards until they've finished. They haven't done all the suites yet, and then along the way, when there's an opportunity, there will be common areas addressed as well. And so, as I said, it's a compression of expenses that normally would be amortized over a longer period. In this case, which is why we made the adjustments.
How did you come to the number of $1,800 per unit for the R&M?
This particular company, on their stable units, runs to about that rate. They have 100 multifamily properties in Winnipeg, and they're consistent. When their physical conditions have been stabilized, that is their typical cost.
Just one question as I was listening along. If they're, I noticed you use the average instead of the most recent, with knowledge that they're going to continue, upgrading the units as they are vacated. Would it not make more sense to use the most recent level of income from 2020 in your stabilization?
Well, as I said, we had considered that, but the up and down on this one is relatively a strong pattern. There's never been a consistent income basis of this, and these complete it's not the renovations and the loss of the vacancies, because the costs, they're very good at what they do, and they usually get the renovations done in a few weeks. So it's not killing their income. It's just the building itself. And I was telling you also about the changing patterns in south of Winnipeg. When more properties come out, there's going to be more competition for space. So it's not. It wasn't. I didn't feel comfortable on it. There's some with that clear pattern growth. This one has never demonstrated it. And while we're talking, I'm just opening up the last couple of years of statements and just making sure yeah, it's exactly the same pattern. It's an up and down. So there's nothing to write home about here.
Those are our questions. Thank you.
Okay, Linda, any questions?
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Okay, Kent, any questions?
Sure. When was this location last inspected by you?
I'm thinking around 2016, 2017. Oh, wait a sec. No, it was after that because I have a. I'm looking at. We may have done it for a municipal board case management after that, and I don't know the exact date. Within the last 10 years, but it could have been over 5 years ago.
With respect to these ongoing renovations, what percentage would you say have been completed of the suites?
I think they're probably nearing about 85% right now.
With respect to the actual renovations, is it the kitchens? Is it the bathrooms? Are they just putting paint? Is it flooring?
No, it's a fairly extensive interior going over. I mean that the flooring will be looked at. If I'm trying to remember what if we had hardwoods in this or we had carpet on top. Most of these vintage are. I really don't remember this, but I think most of these vintage are carpet over hardwood. So again, carpets, painting, trims would be replaced around windows, cabinets, which is the big cost. There, all these cabinets were vintage, and then fixtures as well. Fridge, stove, toilets, sinks. So it's a much bigger job. I would say that instead of a typical makeover in a suite, you're usually talking 2,000 to 3,000. So these ones would be 5,000 to 6,000, twice as much, which is why we cut off half of the R&M. These are still legitimate expenses, right? But it's the amortization schedule. They should be, we shouldn't be seeing, all the 14 units, we shouldn't be seeing all of the numbers popping up like this. If you're targeting 2 a year instead of spending 4,000, 5,000 for a turnover, which is normal, you'd be spending 10,000 and over this cycle. So that's really what we were trying to stabilize. I think the numbers support the calculations. You can see that in there.
This building is a concrete building, or is it a brick with what structure?
I'm looking at it. It appears to me to be a wood frame structure with brick facade.
Mm-hmm. What would you say the overall condition is? You mentioned, I think, approximately 85% of this has been renovated. I assume that was the suite renovations. Does that include the hallways and foyers and I'll say general access points?
Yes, it does. And so they would be on a year-to-year basis, how they would do a floor at a time, and not every year. But that was also neglected in it. So if you, and then again, I'm going to be careful. I don't want to make assumptions, but I think these are safe. If you took a look at our page 1, 2018 would probably appears to demonstrate turnover in 2 units, refreshing the difference, and 19 appears to be about the same, whereas in 20 that would be a hallway as well as some units. And that's why we stabilized it all down. You still have to do this work. It is still an expense. So it doesn't get ignored. We're just extending the amortization period here.
What, if you looked at this, what would you say your opinion is the overall condition of this building?
All the properties owned by this company are fairly consistent. They're all condition is they're not new. They're good for their age. But good for their age is a bit of a qualifier. Compared to a new building, this would be a fair building, below good. So it's just a good working building that's putting out the amount of income that it is. Don't see it changing.
Thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, can you give me the revenues for 2016 and 17?
Certainly. Let me just go back to my statements here again. Okay, what have I got there? I've got listed is, okay, you want 17, 128,000.
Okay,
That was a big reno year though. For 16, 123,000.
okay, so,
15,
okay, that's
120,000. I should say on that 15 year and one of the other years that they had higher vacancies because that was you know, just see what they said for vacancy here. Yeah, there was that period of growth and then there was a slippage. So they were performing 100, what did I say, 114 up to 128,000, and then for the year in question, then at 135, but then back to 130, and then up to 140. So I can see that there's been growth over the years. I'm not entirely sure. Let's just say, so if we had a range of 114 to 140 over a period of 6 years, it's 36,000. So they have had a 25% growth over the 6 years on an average basis. It was the 2019 number that was disturbing.
yeah.
So I mean, those are fair points, and they are what they are. So you can interpret. I don't know how I'd interpret that. I was just taught. We were just a little concerned about 2020's number. I'm just reading it here. I want to just taking a look at it. Yeah. So the drop here. I don't see anything here that is helpful one way or another.
Yeah. All right. Those are my questions. Let's move on to 1520 Pembina. Give me a moment to open the files. Okay, on 1520 Pembina, Mr. Dyachin, you can begin.
Okay, file number 222641, roll number 0308029210. Address is 1520 Pembina Highway. Assessed value was $1,417,000. Class code 20, liability taxable. It is one building, 3 stories high, built in 1960, with 15 suites and 16 outdoor parking stalls. Continuing on to page 3, there's 15 2-bedrooms at an average monthly rent of $929.27. NOI is at $72,959 with a cap rate of 5.15%, gives us the value of $1,417,000. Page 4 is the rent comparables once again. Falls below or at the bottom end of the range of average monthly rent per unit. Page 5 is the cap rate table for our model. Page 6 is the cap rate evidence supporting our cap rate, our model cap rates. Continuing on to page 8, similar issues to the last one. We got extremely high repairs and maintenance at like over $9,000 per unit. And that is why we're using the model figures.
The last, that's fine.
And then there's a couple pictures at the end, and it's all similar to the last property, and that is my evidence.
Okay, questions, Mr. Neufeld?
Yeah, just page valuation, page 3. It's all by the model here,
Correct.
and including now the 5.15% based on 1960 age. Then is one of the factors.
Age is one of the factors. Yep.
And I know the chair had asked this question before, and I now see that you actually state here it's wood frame construction, correct?
Yeah, it's wood frame.
Okay. Now I'm looking at, and I don't know if you picked up on this, but I'm just reading this page, the statement they provided here, page 8. 167,000 income, 227,000 in expenses. I believe line 2 and 8 should be negative 60,000. Don't you think so?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. It's just it was I saw, and of course the interest, we would never consider the interest, but so it's probably negative 40,000. I just want to make sure that there were no issues with that. It looks like just missing some brackets. Now, looking at your picture of it on page 9, and it's a irregular shape. Does the model take into account the irregular shape on the expense ratios?
No, it does not.
Okay. And there's no reason to believe that this is nothing but a fully gross building. I'm looking at the utilities. They appear to be indicate that it's no one separately metered.
We could try and take a look at the other pages of the mailer. Can you, they'll, on the other pages, which we should have included, they'll indicate.
Oh, yeah, right.
No, but we don't have it in our brief, but let's see if we can get that information for you quick. Of course, we can't get to this page.
Of course. Let's see if I can beat you to it.
Yeah, it's not letting me.
Can't get it. Do you have that page of the?
Yeah, I do. I'm looking at it. What is included in the rent? Heat is checked off. Water is checked off. So hydro is not checked off. That makes sense looking at the statements.
Yeah, looking at what they're spending for hydro, yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so the heat is included. Okay, those are my questions. Thanks.
All right, Kent, questions?
What does this building have for parking?
Let me double check here. It has 16 outdoor parking stalls
16.
on our records. Yep.
That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
All right, Linda, any questions?
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Okay. So you can proceed, Mr. Neufeld.
Yes, thank you. Really, our difference on the income is the expense ratio. And we're at 60%, the assessor's at 54%. The reason I was asking the question about the design and the utilities is it's got a lot of skin, a lot of envelope. So you're going to have higher heating costs because you have more exposure to the elements. The model doesn't take that into account. All these buildings, most all these buildings today are gross buildings. Now, the electricity is reserved for appliances, which are more constant. So it is higher heating costs that we would, which drive the expense ratio. Now, we have adjusted the expense ratio again. This is the related building, same purchase, same issue as the one we just heard. In this case, we adjusted the R&M a little bit higher to $2,000 because these are all 2-bedroom units, so there's more work to be done. It's going through the same deferred maintenance catch-up phase as the other ones. So you can see that, for example, in 2020, the R&M was 135,000. We've adjusted it to 30,000. And that's our consistent, let's see, for 18, 19, and 20. Like the property before, just point out that there is another anomaly in revenue in terms of going up and then down. Same factors at work. In this case, it's not a factor in the assessed value because we have relatively the same income. It is the expenses where we differ, and the actuals have been adjusted, and the cap rate, the same issues on all of these. Again, this is a small sized, and the assessor's anecdotal comments on size is interesting. It's not how we value buildings on that basis. We have to assume a standard, and that standard is striving for a market-defined cap rate, not a user-defined cap rate. The smaller ones, if they were to appear to cap lower, one would have to investigate them further to determine if there's an element of owner occupancy or there's plan for renovations, and not just a paper review. As with all of these properties today, they send in their mailers. There's an address there for asking questions, and at this point, I think actual income and expenses are more important. These were adjusted downwards, and the cap rate, again, reflecting everything you've heard today, it's at the top end of the good Colliers range, which puts it at, well, low end, I guess, for value, which puts it as a class C or D building where we only do A's and B's. Thank you.
Okay, questions, Mr. Dyson?
Are they renovating units as tenants leave, and are they getting rent control exemptions?
Well, no, partially what you're saying, as they become vacant, they'll do it. And that's why there's such a dramatic, it's fewer buildings, but bigger units. That's why there's such a dramatic change. What they do with the rent is they don't get more revenue for it. So if you look at the mailer, and you didn't include we both didn't include that cover page now, did we? Okay. I'm looking at an older one from 2017 where they had registered rents of 190,000 but only declared 154,000. What they do when they do this work is they submit a claim to RTB and request an above guideline increase. So when that's approved, the RTB tracked rental rate is higher, but that differs from the actual paid rent. Actual paid rent is market. The RTB one is the allowable rate. And again, if a miracle happens and everybody makes twice as much money tomorrow, they can jack the rents easily and make more money. But that's not what they're earning. It's just a variance between the registered rate and actual achieved rates. Every apartment of this vintage has two rates, and that doesn't mean that they're achieving them when they're registered.
Do you know how many of the 15 units have been renovated so far?
And no, again, I'm just estimating, just knowing the way they operate, it's gonna be, they're nearing completion. Last time I talked to the manager, he said, yeah, we're just about finished these 3 projects that we have, after 10 years.
No other questions, thank you.
Okay, Linda, any questions?
I don't have any further questions.
Okay, Kent, any questions?
Yes, when it comes to the parking, I noticed there was a comment within your details here on page 2 that says some of the parking stalls are on the public road. Do we know how many are on the public road?
Oh, yeah, sure. I just noticed that. Yeah, on page 1, the boundaries are in blue. And so you can see there's parking stalls. There's two cars on the lot and 4 cars not on the lot. They have room for more, obviously. But it looks to me like there is a total of about 11 parking stalls, of which 7 are on the city street. Don't have, they're not legal lots. So they can't be assumed to go with the property.
This ongoing renovations, is this similar to the last property?
Yeah, it was this building was part of that share purchase of 50% former owners' interests, and these are managed by the same group, owned by the same group, and yes, it's all the same project for them.
Mm-hmm. When was the last time you inspected it?
The same time as I was in the last one we talked about. It was a tour of all 3 of these sites with an assessor. I can't remember her name right now. Sorry.
No problems. What would you say the general condition is of this property?
Oh, the same as the last one. For its age, good. In comparison to the market, it's fair.
Mm-hmm. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
All right. Excuse me. A very poorly timed sneeze. I have no questions, so I guess let's move on to the last of this group, 1 Finch.
Pause that.
I shall open the files and then we can commit. Okay, on 1 Finch then. Mr. Dyerton, you can begin.
It's file number 221984, roll number 030803000100. Address is 1 Finch Bay. We have a recommendation to reduce the value to $3,178,000 using a 5% cap rate and an NOI of $158,920. And you can see the workup on page 8. We use the average R&M from 2018 to 2020, which is about $1,800, which seems reasonable. We gave it 5% property management. We had to remove the interest because there's incorrectly marked insurance on there. And yeah, so that comes to the new value of $3,178,000.
Okay, I should ask then, Mr. Neufeld, how do you feel about this recommendation?
I think it's appropriate on the NOI, and so just a matter of the capitalization rate.
Okay.
So just continue on to page 2.
All right, then, Mr. Diachin, is there anything you wish to add on CAP?
Nothing further. It's just the same as all the others.
All right,
Yeah, and then there's some pictures near the end of the property from page 13 to 15, just to give you an idea of the interior. And
okay. Is that your presentation?
yes,
Okay, Mr. Newfeld?
Yes, thank you. Again, no issues on the income. We're $1,000 off. Only thing I was just going to point out, because this is part of the same economic unit we've heard before. You'll note that in this one, the performance was different, in that it was sequential in income earning capability. One of the reasons.
Okay, before you get ahead of yourself, I was asking if you had questions.
Oh, yeah, right.
Obvious.
Sorry, I got this big headache here, and no, I don't have any questions other than we've gone over already.
Okay, Linda, any questions?
No, I have no questions. Thank you.
Hey, Kent?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
All right, now you can begin, Rocky.
Okay, sorry. I was watching this hockey game last night, and we were celebrating. So the income differential on this one versus the other one is actually, when I was beginning today talking about how you have a nice split between ones and twos. So this one is a bit better operationally, and a good mix. And so it didn't see the variations that the other ones had. It's also off Pembina, a little bit quieter. It's right behind the last property. You can see the building in to the left of it. It's I'd love to be able to give you the great analysis of why it differs. Really, the bottom line is it happened, and it's a factor of the market we deal with. You'll also notice in this one, even though it was purchased under the same concept or same precepts as the other one, that the expenses didn't vary, and that's because in 2015 they spent several $100,000, and they managed to do a major part of the property renewal of the suites at one point, and finished. So it's just this is the way that it runs, and you'll notice that their actual expense ratio is stabilized downwards as well. The difference in the cap rate, these are the same issues for all of them. That it's the concern here is we have another irregular shaped building, which means some inconsistencies in the heating costs, lots of skin, lots of envelope, and the original age 1973. Condition is good for its age, fair for the market. It is a back lane, which isn't really, I don't think that that's a factor myself. When I look at these buildings, I would say in a perfect world, the first two we spoke of on Pembina Highway are worse than this one. So if I were looking at it, I would have gone higher than 6 on the first two and lower than 6 on this one, or treat them as one economic unit at all 6. I could see the argument on this one dropping a touch below 6 by itself, say 5.75. And the other ones should be a bit higher. I'm not changing my values. I'm just thinking that these are all one economic unit, so the whole package is at 6. And I'll leave it up to the board. Thank you.
All right, questions, Mr. Diachin?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, Linda, any questions?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, Kent, any questions?
Sure. With respect to the parking, I see that this location at the parking is in the back lane. How many stalls are in the back lane? And how many stalls does the building actually have?
Yeah, not, now, looking at the picture, I should really, I don't know if the assessor's got a better picture than me in terms of size and zoom. Let me just see. He doesn't have any pictures of the outside. Okay, the blue lines represent the boundaries. So on the bottom left, looks like 2 cars and 3 stalls are in the back lane. And then the property line juts out and takes a stall and a half away that are city property that they're being used. Looks to me like anywhere from 3 to 5 stalls would be not on the site, and then the rest are on site. So it would have, I don't like this picture really. Let me just, I can't see. Sorry, I don't want to delay or anything, but you know, it's I'm looking now at Google Earth just to see. Yes, I wanted to see the outline of the building, and so the picture we gave you, yeah, the cars are on the left side of the building. They're butting up right against it, and then oh, somebody got an old picture. I'm the imagery date from 2022 looks like they added some stalls on Finch, not on Finch, on Pembina Highway, on the lot line. It looks like 5 stalls were added. The ones on in the lane though are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, this is great. Actually, Google Earth is much better because all the ones on city land no longer have stripes on them, and all the ones that are on their own lots have stripes on them. So I can actually give you legal stall counts here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 for the Pembina site, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. $25 for a Finch, maybe 26. Just yeah. So those are the correct numbers.
And so you're saying approximately 5
Are
in the
on
back lane.
Yeah, are on the back lane.
Okay, so this building is undergoing renovations too.
No, they're finished here. They finished
already?
6 years ago.
Okay. What would you actually say the condition is here, and when was the last time you inspected it?
The same with the other 2. They were all one inspection, and again, it's good for its age, fair in the market.
That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
All right. I don't have any questions other than probably an observation. The parking stalls that are on city property are probably the first ones occupied.
No kidding.
But okay, thank you. Does anybody need a break before we move north?
Sure.
Yeah, can we have a few minutes?
Okay, we'll take a 10-minute break then to 10 after 11. All right, thank you. We'll come back into session. The next next three properties are on McPhillips Street, and they're basically part of one complex, as I understand it. And the issue is strictly cap rates on these. So you can begin, Mr. Diachin, please.
Okay, file number 222741, roll number 1406096010, and the address is 1168 McPhillips Street. Assessed value is $1,505,000, and classification 20, liability taxable. It's one building, 2 stories high, built in 1961 with a 10-year effective age, 12 suites, 5 outdoor parking. There are 5 1-bedrooms, 7 2-bedrooms, giving us 12 units at an average monthly rent of $1,007.30. It looks like our NOI was accepted at $73,732, and it's mostly just cap rate issues for the next few, like you said. Our cap rate's 4.9%, giving us the value of $1,505,000. Page 5 is once again the rent comparables. You can see that it falls within the range of the average monthly rent per unit. Page 5 is the cap rates, cap rate evidence. Continuing on, we have the income and expense mailers on page 8, 9, and 10. And then page 11 are pictures of the building. And it was inspected in 2017 and fully renovated, windows, plumbing, electrical, kitchens, and bathrooms. And that is my evidence.
Okay, questions, Mr. Neufeld?
Yes. So the evaluation was on page 3 was done by the model. Is that correct? And this expense ratio, and I'm just asking a question I don't know the answer to, so I just want to say, oh yes. So page 8 shows that heat and water are included in the rent.
Trying to look here.
It looks to be that way.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Okay, and they're also saying that with 12 units, they have 6 parking stall. You've got 5. Got I see that. And what were the factors that led to someone's decision to change the age of the building?
It was based on the inspection in 2017 and the renovations that were completed.
And where was the frame, foundation, or basic envelope changed?
Not that I know of, but the interiors were completely redone.
Okay, but
Those as well.
and I'm sure you were listening to what I was saying earlier, but don't the interiors always have to be changed with time? I mean, isn't that just normal maintenance?
Well, I mean, there's repairs and then there's also upgrading. Our notes indicate that there's been upgrades to the property in regards to the windows. You can see the picture on page 12 have been replaced. Plumbing and electrical modernized. That would be considered an upgrade.
What page
Instead of
is
just
that?
repairing it and kind of keeping it going, if they're doing more wholesale renovations, then that's something that we would consider reflecting from an effective age standpoint.
Okay, where did you say plumbing and electrical? We're changing.
Oh, that's just from our notes from the time of inspection in 2017. But those notes, again, they're not in our brief. We're just justifying where the effective age came from.
All right. when somebody has to replace a window because it's gotten old and it's now almost 60 years old, do they have any choice but to put in a better window than was originally built? They can't find an old one and put it back in, can they?
No, that's true. They wouldn't go looking for that.
And if you had to make an electrical change, doesn't bylaw require you to comply with the new zoning, the new National Building Code?
It would, definitely.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Okay, Kent, any questions?
Yeah, just to confirm, when was the property fully renovated?
I'm not too sure. I don't have the notes in front of me, but it was inspected in 2017. So I'm assuming around that time.
So you have a built date of 1961, then, but you have an effective date of 1971. How did that change, and why wouldn't the effective date be a little newer?
Yeah, that's a good question. So when the buildings they're inspected, we try and we take down record what's been done, and then in tandem with that, we also look at the income and expense mailers that the property owners submit. So when we change an effective age on the property, what happens is the rent and expenses generated by the model does change. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that the model is accurately reflecting what the income producing potential is that the owner is telling us. We want to be accurate with that. That's our job. So at the time, giving it a bump to 71 from 61 did just that. So that's why it only has a 10-year bump on it.
What would you consider the condition of this property is?
I mean, we don't have interior photographs, but go to the end of the brief, please, Clayton. And so looking at the exterior, it looks to be in good condition, well maintained from an exterior standpoint. If you look at the what's being advertised on the property manager's website.
Okay, thank you. That's all. Any questions, Mr. Chair?
All right, Linda, any questions?
I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
All right. Okay, you can begin, Mr. Newfield, on your presentation, recognizing that the previous cap rate evidence has been placed.
Certainly, and right. Excuse me. We would still consider this 1961 construction because it's the frame, the foundation, the envelope, with the exception of windows, are still original, and the rest of the changes, well, it's sort of like if one day I showed up and I had a haircut and a new suit and someone said you look 10 years younger. That's really all it is. You're not 10 years younger, you just look it. That does not change the remaining economic life of a property, and that's the key. All properties, commercial rental properties, go through this period of extending their economic life, because that's their nature, and expenses are incurred to do it. So it does not change their age ever. And it does not change the cap rate. It just means you got to keep up with the market or else you die. It's survival. It's not improvement. And I think the real problem is in the last 50, 60 years of rental history in Manitoba, where every province went through these issues about whether we want to institute rent control and how you would do it. And when the government started interfering in it, there was a lot of pressure to not spend any money on a lot of properties. And And then later on, when rent controls changed, there was a more of an inducement to do it. So in essence, though, nothing has changed the package. It's just a deferral of work and catching up on the work. And with, the market by itself would probably have looked after it with or without the government. These are artificial factors, this effective year built on properties like this, because to really change the effective year, you're going to have to do a major change, change the foundation, which is the first thing that'll go. So I'll get off my soapbox. These particular properties, I think the issues with them tend to relate the fact that even though they're an economic unit, they are all separately marketable. They are smaller, and I disagree with the assessor. A small property is a worse risk. Now, just because there are anecdotally, as he did agree, people who do buy these at lower cap rates, what the failure there is the concept of market value. A well-informed buyer is missing there. And that's the difference. We're talking about definition of market value, which requires well-informed buyer, well-informed seller, the basic side of it. So we have, when neophytes get into the market and are afraid that they miss the boat on investments, and they buy something that's bad, that doesn't reflect the market. That reflects a particular motivation that is an anomaly in the market. So the numbers, there should always be a rate of return in any property, and the rate is dictated by money markets, not by speculation. I mean, one of the things with the Colliers things, I didn't get into it too much, is the fact that we're showing you on our page 21, you better follow the money market, because the reason we have cap rates is to make sure there's enough money to pay the mortgage. That's the bottom line. There must be an adherence to a standard, and that's what all the major players in the market, the three brokerage firms that the assessor brought up, who are all indicating higher cap rates, know this to be the truth. And we all look at the superior properties as well, the A's and the B's. This was a D, now it's a C. So it's going to be at above the A's and B's, which range from 5 to 6, and in that area. Now, the number of 6.25 I put on it. I mean, I haven't honestly, so I don't have to ask the question later. I haven't inspected these properties. This is a different client than the last one, so I haven't been out to theirs. But of note are the parking stalls, whether it's 4, 5, or 6, are much below what you would need. And the retort has always been, well, you got bus service. No, that's not the answer. If you want a good cap rate, there has to be an upside. That upside is the ability to get more rent in the future. If you're looking to rent to people who can't afford cars, you're in trouble. You're looking at another side of the market that has no upside. And I'm trying to put it in the politically correct terminology, but that is it. It's people at different income levels who don't have the same disposable income. It's downward pressure on rents, downward pressure on the value. That's why we bring this up. The small issue discussed once already today, one, fixed cost versus variable costs are killers on these small units. Year built doesn't change, quality and condition. This one would be considered good as compared to the market. And I think fair to good good for its age, fair to good in comparison to the market. In terms of quality, it has a better upside on condition side than the ones we just heard. Because I do know what the style of the work that was done on this and their general work, because they have about 40 properties, and I've seen a lot of them, but not this one. So I know where what they do for condition, but that doesn't extend its remaining economic life. That's just, it looks nicer. And the downsides on these, I think it relates mostly to the size factor on this. And, you know, since it was renovated, we've gone back and look at the statements. They had the bump that happens after renovation, and that's it. It hasn't kept going up. It went to where it could go, and then it was finished. So there's no upside in our business. When you talk to any professional about a cap rate for an apartment, someone talks about a low cap rate, the first question is always asked, what is the upside? They want to know, is there going to be future revenue potential for growth? Potential. No, it's done. They've done the renovation. There's nowhere else to go. This is going to be a stagnant performer. And that is really 1162, 66, and 68. It's all the same. They've hit the top of the market. They've been there. There's no indication they'll ever go higher. That indicates a high cap rate because there's no future bump. That's my presentation. Thanks.
Okay, questions, Mr. Dyachin?
Yeah. If the parking is a big issue, then how come the vacancy is so low at around 1%?
Well, I think the proper question is, because the parking is so limited, they're not attracting people who can pay high rents. So they drop the rental price to people who don't have cars. That's what I'm trying to say. That's the equation to look at, not to try to relate it to vacancy. It's catering to a different crowd.
So just in regards to your chart on page 2 there, would you consider lower than market vacancy a factor that would put downward pressure on a cap rate in your overall analysis?
That would have to be tied to the income generating potential. Now, the mistake that's made on page 2, and I did not do this report, the person who did is not an appraiser, but the line item for income growth potential, that should have been a deduction. There's no growth potential here. Now, what you're talking about is income stability. Yes, because you've got rents that are low enough, low vacancy rates. That's a 10 out of 10. We've reflected it. And tenant strength, because it's where it's targeted into the socioeconomic class, it's strong in that class. It's just not going to grow. All three of these indicators on income are separate issues.
Okay, and just go up here. Okay, so just one more question. Just that like 46%, 47% expense ratio for a building built in 61. Would you agree that it's that's a pretty low expense ratio? Would be safe on the expense side of the coin for a potential purchaser in doing analysis?
Well, no, I mean, the ratio when it's set for a potential investor, that's irrelevant what the ratio is. It is the risk of volatility in that ratio. And the concern on the volatility would be the fact that heat is included in the rent. So it's a gross rent. So if you have rising utility costs, then you're going to erode your income. So I would say, no, if this is a negative, the expense risk ratio, it's good now, but it's not guaranteed to be good. So if you wanted to see an improvement on it, if people have the ability, or if landlords have the ability to offset utility costs on their tenants, the investor likes that better because he's not exposed to the ups and downs. So it's not the rate, it's what's included in the rate.
Okay, and just with the rentals, kind of like touching on that point, did they get an RTB exemption based on the amount of work? Do you have any knowledge in regards to that was done to the units?
Yeah, I don't know the exact. I don't know if it was an above line above average increase, or if it was an exemption for typically 5 years. I was just looking back in the income going back to after the renovation, and there's after the renovation, there was no movement.
Okay, and just reviewing this. So just one last question. It's for building size. You got 3 out of 6 in regards to it being small. So was that analysis, if I think I'm getting what you're saying, that's based on a smaller amount of tenants as such, if repairs and maintenance come up and there's a vacancy, it would be a bigger chunk coming out of their pocket, not so much that there'd be a bigger pool of people potentially purchasing it? Would that be a fair?
It's the risk of interrupting that expense ratio, and you on your page 9 and 10, you've got the expenses listed, and if you look at the first line item on expenses, which is cleaning, and these are some of these. Cleaning of the units would be a variable. Cleaning of the vents is a fixed amount. The fire and safety is a fixed amount. Locksmith is a fixed amount. There's only 2 doors to worry about. And well, actually, no, it's a multiple one. It's suite ones as well. Mat rental, 2 entrances. That's a fixed cost. Pest control, there's like 2 rat traps in every building, so that's going to be a fixed cost. So that's what I'm getting at. Boiler costs are semi-variable, and big boilers cost more than little boilers, but there's a fixed rate plus an increase, so it's not variable. So that, and then when you start looking at fees, admin fees, legal fees, they're all going to be the same. Your accountant's return is going to cost you the same if you got 30 doors or you have 8 doors.
Okay, thank you. Those are our questions.
All right, Kent, any questions?
Sure. Wouldn't you say that the cap rate is a bit high based on the fact that this is a fully renovated location with the exception of parking?
Yeah, the cap rate is in our business. Once a building has undergone an extensive renovation, there is no more room to revenue growth. You've done what you can do. Like, there's no opportunity once your RTB exemption period passes to get a higher rate if the market demands it or indicates it. You test the market and see how much you're going to get, and it won't go higher because you're also competing against inferior units at lower rents, and to spend more means like I said, you've hit the top of the market. It's a concept that a lot of people, like in our business, we know, we deal with this all the time. You've renovated, you're finished. You're not getting more money. If you haven't renovated, there's an upside that you could renovate for some buildings and potentially earn more with capital investment. So the cap rates tend to be negative on the completely renovated project on that basis. No room for growth.
Thank you. That's all. Any questions, Mr. Chair?
Okay, Linda, any questions?
On the cap rate, Mr. Neufeld, would you consider the location as being a similar impact on the cap rate in this building as the ones on Pembina close to the university? I noticed that the chart's given them the same 8 out of 10, I think, on location, but
yeah, it has some similarities. I probably would still think Pembina, because of the increased Pembina's got the increased competition problem. McPhillips has more I'm not really good with politically correct terms. So let's just say that the income level in that area is a bit lower than the south end of the city, so there are more people who rent. So it is a better market for rental. My opinion is I would probably, as a rental property, say this is a better location.
Okay.
And what we missed out on here was income growth potential should be lower. So that's why I wouldn't change it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, just an observation that you know, it's within a short walk to the best pizza place in town, so that's an asset.
Well,
So I
the
got-
last one was next door to a Tim's.
that's well, unless you have a car, you're not going to use the drive-through, are you?
No.
Okay, so we'll go on to the next property, and I'll just get Mr. Diachin to read in the information and then add anything that's different about this property compared to the last. These are kind of a one unit. So, Mr. Diachin, you can proceed on 1162 McPhillips.
It's file number 222740, roll number 14060962100, and the address is 1162 McPhillips Street. Assessed value is 1,127,000. Yeah, it's pretty much the exact same as the one before, except for this one has 1 bachelor and 8 2-bedrooms. It's nine units. And it was also renovated and inspected in 2017, same as the previous one. As you can see, also, it has very low vacancy, similar to the other ones. And that is my evidence.
Okay, questions, Mr. Neufeld?
I think we've covered it all. I don't see anything new.
Okay.
So,
Kent, any questions?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Linda, questions?
I have no questions.
Okay, Mr. Neufeld, your presentation on anything different?
I got nothing different.
Okay.
It's all the same.
All right. Any questions from Mr. Diachin on this then?
No questions.
Okay, Kent, any questions?
Just to confirm the parking, I think there's just 5 parking stalls here.
Yeah, 5.
And
Yeah, they're listing 5. I don't see the form. Let me just see. Did you supply the form? Your answer? I just have one here. I guess we don't put in the entire thing here. Okay. Parking. Okay, they're saying 6 on their income and expense form.
6.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
All right. Linda, any questions?
I have no questions, no.
Okay, then we'll move up the street next door to 1156 McPhillips. So, Mr. Diachin, on anything different here?
This one's file number 222738, roll number 14060963100. Address is 1156 McPhillips Street. Assessed value is $1,505,000. The suite mix is slightly different. It's got 5 1-bedrooms, 7 2-bedrooms, giving us 12 units. And then everything else is virtually the same. Once again, very low vacancy rate. And that is my evidence.
All right. Questions, Mr. Neufeld?
No, just to clarify the parking, I think you had 5 again. Did you have the form handy? I probably makes sense to at least make sure we're talking about the same thing. I got one coming, 1156.
We just have the income and expense mailer.
Yeah, six, they're saying 6 on the mailer. Okay, so
Yeah. It's like 5 or 6, yeah.
yeah, okay, not an issue. I just don't want, no new questions, thanks.
Okay, Kent, any new questions on this one?
So this was also fully renovated.
Yeah, it was all inspected in 2017 with the other ones. So yeah, fully renovated, same stuff.
Thank you. That's all. Any questions, Mr. Chair?
Okay, Linda, any questions?
I don't have any questions.
All right, Mr. Newfield, on your presentation, on anything new?
Nothing at all.
Okay. Mr. Dyachin, any questions on the nothing at all?
No, that's all.
Okay, Linda, any questions?
I have no question.
All right, Kent, any questions?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you very much for this property. Now we'll move back downtown, I guess, to 185 Vaughan Street. Let me open the files. All right, on 185 Vaughan, you can begin, Mr. Jayachan.
Okay, file number 223086, file number 12093715000. Address is 185 Vaughan Street. Assessed value is $1,990,000. Class code 20, liability taxable. It's one building, 3 stories high, with a year built of 1928 and effective age of 1944. There are 29 suites and 5 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3, we have 21 bachelor suites and 8 one-bedrooms, giving us 29 units at an average monthly rent of $703.12. And NOI is at 103,488 with a cap rate of 5.2%, gives us the value of $1,990,000. Once again, here are the rent comparables. You can see it falls below the range of average monthly rent per unit. Same cap rate, evidence, and information. And then we have the income and expense mailers on page 8 to 10 and 11. It shows the rents for the units. Continuing on to page 15, there's a little blurb from a website stating that completely renovated, upgraded suites for this apartment. Then there's a couple pictures at the end, and unfortunately no interior pictures. And that is my evidence.
All right, questions, Mr. Newfield?
Yes, first, standard, page 3, all done by the model.
Yep.
And how was so the age was changed from 1928 to 1944. What, to your knowledge, is the extent of any work done on it?
Yeah, in our notes we had, I guess it was pulled from an ad online, but it was renovated, new water and electrical lines, new concrete floors and walls, refinished hardwood floors, new tiles in the bathroom, kitchens and bathrooms completely done with new toilets, vanity, tub, shower, new paint. Kitchens with new appliances, cupboards, counters, lights, common areas redone with lighting, flooring, and paint, and security cameras added.
And these are bachelor units, is that correct?
There are 21 bachelors and 8 ones, yeah.
What does your model treat bachelor units differently than ones and twos?
From a rent standpoint, it does consider what bachelors are
Rent.
renting
Yeah.
for.
And what about from capitalization?
That I'm not sure.
Well, I'm looking at the rate of 5.2%, which seems to be very similar to the ones we've already heard. So would it be fair to assume that it's not doing anything for bachelors? Anything different?
I mean, it is in a different area. It is downtown. So there's other parts that would move if they were right next to each other, and that was the case. I would be able to put more weight in the yes camp, but because there's other moving parts, I can't give a definite answer, unfortunately.
Okay, well, that's fair. Has anyone ever been in the building from the assessment department? I think I took somebody in. I just can't remember. You have that in your notes?
I don't. I can't recall if it said.
Okay. It would have been about the time the repairs were done in and around 2011. No, nothing. No,
Yeah,
no.
no,
Yeah,
no,
no, sorry. I can't access the notes unfortunately right now.
Okay. Sorry, just one second. I don't want to take up too much more time. Great. And did you? Oh, okay. No, I guess those are my questions then.
Okay, Linda, any questions?
I don't have any further questions.
Okay, Kent, any questions?
Yes, can you just reconfirm the date of the renovations?
The ad was from 2013, so it was probably in and around that date.
Okay, this was a complete, I'll say a complete building renovations, including building systems.
Yeah, it looks like it was a complete renovation of everything, essentially.
Do we know the cost?
I don't, unfortunately. There wasn't any permits that we had in our system.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, so Mr. Neufeld, you can begin then.
Sorry, I was kind of going over this rather quickly. I just noticed something here. You don't mind if I ask one brief, short question?
Okay, go ahead.
On page 14, their COVID questionnaire, they said actually lost tenants as a direct result of COVID-19. Is this something you have ever seen in multifamily? I haven't. That's why I just noticed this. It's rather surprising.
Like, I mean, have they abandoned or breached terms of leases? Is that
As a direct result of COVID.
breached terms of their leases as a direct result of COVID? Yes, too.
My question is just, have you ever seen this before? No,
Not,
neither have I.
not typically, no.
No.
Not
No.
typically, no.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. I'll move on. I'll just start with my presentation then. The building was pretty much, how would I describe this? It was more like a social assistance building up to 2011. It was bachelor suites, and the rents were based on whatever social assistance paid. What happened in 2011 is they had some major problems. You'll note the assessors talked about the concrete flooring. It wasn't just the concrete flooring. It was multiple floors had failures of the flooring system, the actual structural support for the flooring system, not the building itself, but the flooring. So that would be floor joist failure. And it was decided at that point in time to evict everybody, repair that, and then do some upgrades on it as well for the actual units. So they started as a result of a repair problem. So this begs the question, did they extend the life of the building? No, they didn't. They fixed the problem that came up. They didn't change the foundation or the frame. They had floor failure. It was a major component, but it again, these things don't change the life of a building. It just means you're dealing with a sick problem that you fixed. I'm sorry, I'm just a rather vocal opponent of this concept of trying to change an effective year built. You can change the remaining economic life if you do a decent calculation supported by engineering reports, but you don't change the effective year built. So the income did go up substantially at that time. Prior to that period, it was extremely low, but since that time, there's been 10 years of stable operations. The stable operations we calculate to be, and again, this is showing that anomaly of going up in 2019 higher, dropping in 2020. So that's why we did not, we averaged it out. In this particular case, we took the last year, we'd have a lower NOI. We've just noticed this on a couple of buildings that have been going up and down for no apparent reason. The expenses since their work have been stable. In NOI 99,980 doesn't differ much from what the assessor has, and not a major factor. Cap rate is this particular building. The issues that we looked at, I think there's three major issues here. One is that it's a bachelor suite building. I guess that's now a non-politically correct term. A single room building. I don't know what to call it. The market for properties like this is a bit strange, but it's not a good investment model. It's not looked highly upon in the investment field. It's limited users. Whether even if you're located by a university, which has a potential to draw. So if you're located, for example, close to Red River, there are more of these bachelor units. And in that market, they do a bit better. This one is not in that market. So that's a downside. The second downside is quite obvious. It was built in 1928, and the third downside is, and this is not in the report, but because the person who wrote it was not aware of it. I was in the building and observed the failure of the floor joists. If you got failure of floor joists, you're gonna have other problems in your building. You're gonna have concerns about the structure, the overall structure, because that doesn't happen by itself. It's usually and I have no evidence. I'm just saying it's usually an indication of another problem, generally moisture. I would have capped this much higher. I would have probably put this about 8 or 9%. Not going to change it, but this is that is the situation on this. For example, what's wrong in this workup is cars. Because it's downtown, it's a different clientele, so parking isn't really something we look at for downtown operations, unless you're at the high end of the range in rents. So the coverage ratio, it should improve the cap rate or make it lower, but the quality and condition would indicate a higher cap rate because of what has happened in the past. And that's my presentation.
All right, questions, Mr. Dyachin?
Just looking at the 2018 to 2020 mailers, I noticed that the professional fees are $7,500 in each year. Would you consider that atypical and kind of odd that they are the same?
No, I mean, this is a very basic report, so there's a variety of fees that are included in there. Accounting, legal, every time you go to a residential tenancies branch for anything, it costs you money. So and again, this is a family corporation. So there is a bit of evening out of their expenses from operation to operation. I know them quite well, and I've seen the numbers. These all stand up.
No further questions. Thanks.
Okay, Kent, any questions?
Just to confirm the parking, that being the parking in the LE, is that city or is that part of the property?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm looking at that picture. It looks like it's a question of the angle of the photography. I have another viewpoint on that I can just double check on. The city's got this mapping thing where you can actually see the layout of the building, see if it's on there or not. It won't take me long at all to get to it. It's in zone 13. It's just loading now. Okay. I've got Vaughn here. This is Vaughn. I think this is South Portage, across from the bay, or nearby there. Okay, I have the building. Still can't answer that. I'm looking at a picture of the building and there's no measurement on it. It looks like there might be car bays on both sides of the building at the rear, or adequate room for a car. I don't have an actual dimension on it.
Thank you.
So-
That's all my questions, Mr.
Yeah.
Chair.
Okay, Linda.
I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
All right, so let's go on to our last property, 227 Vaughan Street. So, Mr. Dietchin, you can begin. I understand you got a recommendation on this one.
It's file number 222696, bill number 12093694000, and the address is 227 Vaughan Street. We have a recommendation to reduce the value to $1,834,000 using a cap rate of 5.2% and an NOI of $95,349. And you can see the workup on page 8. So we used their expenses and we applied a 5% management because the management provided was pretty high. And we used the income to come up with a new NOI of $95,349 with the cap of 5.2%.
Okay, and I understand the cap rate is an issue here, Mr. Neufeld, but how do you feel about the value?
Actually, no, I think that's fair. I would have probably adjusted the value myself because I noticed we used an averaging instead of a different methodology. So I think their 95 number is good. It's just the cap.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so you can proceed if there's anything more you want to add, Mr. Dietchin.
It's a 3-story building built in 1937. 29 bachelors and 8 one-bedrooms gives us 37 suites. Average monthly rent is $602.32. Rent comparables on page 4. Cap rate evidence on page 5 and 6. And a picture of the exterior on the last page. And that is my evidence.
Okay, questions, Mr. Neufeld?
So the income was changed, so but the cap rate is still from the model then?
Correct.
And 5.2% for a building from 1937. Wouldn't the age indicate a much higher cap rate?
Taken into its own, that's very fair comment, but I mean, it's in a different area. Again, comparing the caps, we're looking at Pembina for older buildings. So with other moving parts, I can't completely say that it's too low, but I can get where your mindset's coming from.
Okay. That's all I had to ask then. I think that was it. I think we've been over these. Yeah, well, okay. So because I'm just looking at your multifamily, your 20th and your 80th percentile. I mean, wouldn't this be in at or above the 80th percentile, or reasonably?
I mean, they're at 5.2. It's in the middle. It's downtown. There's only so much available multifamily land downtown, especially for a smaller investor to potentially get in at this price point. So while it is older, the model perhaps could take sort of the scarcity in regards to this type of asset into mind. I know you also mentioned that given that it's 1937, it's not renovated, so it's not, like you said, bumping up against the top of its income potential. Perhaps this would be something someone might view as a candidate for renovation. So there might be some upside in that pocket, but we feel that given it falls in the middle of the range there of the 20th and 80th, it's just fine.
Well, on that note, since you brought it up, the potential for renovation, isn't there a 600,000 square foot building across the street which was recently given as a donation rather than renovated? I mean, is there really any room for in this direct neighborhood for that sort of project?
When I was pulling up, so. What address is that in particular you're looking for?
The Bay.
Oh,
And sorry, can you repeat your comment again?
Well, you're saying that there's a potential for renovation in this neighborhood, and across the street, there's 600,000 square feet that are vacant. And rather than being developed or renovated, they were donated. You sure this neighborhood has this potential?
I think given the size of the Bay, that's two different markets.
Well, it's the same vintage as the subject. And now we can ask you questions about the medical arts building, which was a newer one, which was a good project, a block on the other side. And might there be a problem with the age-related deficiencies on the potential for reno?
I think that, I mean, they did renovate the medical arts building, and that shows that investors are interested in doing that sort of thing, and that might be something they would look at.
Okay, we're kind of getting into a lot of speculation as to what may or may not happen here.
I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Linda, any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Kent, any questions?
No question, Mr. Chair.
All right. So Mr. Neufeld, your presentation.
Thank you. I was digressing a bit there, but I just heard those comments, and 1937 buildings have a unique set of challenges as far as renovating. The reason Medical Arts did it, and the reason there's other offices that are going to do it, is because they're on they're steel framed with hollow core concrete, and they're a good shell. This is not. This is 90-year-old building. And well, 85. And the potential for that is virtually, well, is really not there. We're not disputing the revenue. It's just the cap rate. And as far as where this would fit in our Collier's package, it would be miscellaneous. So there's A, we track; B, we track; C and D, we don't track, but they're higher than the B's. And there's miscellaneous. So it's going to have a cap rate all unto itself. There's no market standard for a property in this category. It's going to be there's no good cubby hole to stick this into where you can say that the rates are usually in this range. These are all individuals. So the issues on this, of course, are quite apparent. Again, it's the high degree of bachelor suites. The renovation project in this case is like the other one, was a repair, a forced repair. Instead, I didn't mention the other one. There was a fire in there too, on Vaughan. The age and the location, the sub-location, downtown Winnipeg has 6 distinct areas. This particular area is not having anything good happening right now. You got the bay sitting there. You've got North Portage, which has been a problem since the day it was built. The medical arts is somewhat in this area, but then you have the entertainment district, where the arena is a better area. Brand new multifamily going up here. But about all these little sub areas, we got a 1937 apartment block. It's more likely a candidate for a demolition and reconstruction with the lot next door of a larger complex once the market dictates there's a standard for it or a need for it. And as it sits today, my feeling on this is that I probably would have capped this much higher and looked at how many more years useful life it had, probably another 8-9%, not changing anything, but that's how I would characterize it. And I would be looking at the land and seeing, could an assemblage project be done with the parking lot next door once there was demand? That's going to factor in what happens at the bay. Other factors with age related, of course, are the amount of repairs and maintenance that will continue to come up. They're not trouble free. Thank you. That's my presentation.
Okay, questions, Mr. Diachin?
No questions.
Okay, Linda, questions?
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Okay, Kent, questions?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
All right, so we have heard all the items scheduled today, and this hearing is now adjourned. So for the panel, we'll just have a brief break and then come back.
Okay, long day. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Rocky, and everyone.
Happy holidays.
Yes, happy holidays.